This is the first of 4 videos in a series that I'm going to be releasing each week around making money with real estate photography. But today I'm going to be talking about pricing your work. Now, before I get into all this, let me just prime the conversation a little bit by explaining my philosophy on money and selling, because honestly, some of us have a problem with selling. Not all of us are business people, a lot of us are artists or photographers, and we struggle with the business and we struggle with selling. Some of us just are simply not comfortable with it, and I'm actually one of those people. I actually wasn't even comfortable with it for the first few years of my business, and even to this day, I actually get a little uncomfortable talking about it, to the point where I actually have systems set up on my website to where I honestly haven't even had to talk about money with my clients for several years. So the thing is, I believe that the service that I'm providing is a necessity, and it's adding a ton of value to everybody that I work with. And I genuinely believe that I'm serving them. I'm not just selling things to them. I truly feel that these things are going to help them excel in their businesses. So in this series, I'm going to talk about pricing, I'm going to talk about upselling, and even ways that you can position things to help you close a sale on one of your services. Now, there's some of you who are looking at this like it's a little bit slimy, but I want you to look at me. This is not slimy if you do it with the right intentions, if you do it with like the heart of a servant, like you're serving your clients. If you're just out to make an extra dollar at the expense of your client, you're gonna lose in the long run. You really have to believe in what you're selling, and you have to believe that the service that you're providing is valuable to their business. Now, of course, this is a business, and we have to make money, and we have to increase our profitability and all that other stuff, but we can do it with integrity. So with that said, this is a beast of a subject, and a lot of people in the industry are pretty reluctant to cover it because there's just so many factors involved, and I totally get it. I'm even reluctant to answer any questions about pricing because there's just way too many factors involved, and the conversation could last a really long time. Now, this video isn't intended to teach you how to price your business. I'm just simply going to share what I do, why I do it, how I came up with it, as well as any other methods that are out there in the industry that others are doing. Now, quite a bit has changed. I started back in 2011, and when I first started out, just like for many of you, it was just photography, real estate photography, that was it. A year into it, for me, it was slideshows, and then another year into that, it was video, and then Matterport came around, etc., and all these other new things. Now, some of you have been doing these things for years, but for me, it was a new thing every year, and it literally seems like each year there's a brand new thing that you should sell to people. Now, when I first started, some of you have watched my previous videos. I just stumbled into this. I didn't even know real estate photography was a niche. And I actually shot 2 homes before I even bothered to research it, and that's when I discovered the photographyforrealestate.net blog, and that's where I found Larry's formula for pricing, which is basically where you figure out what the average furnace repair price is, and you multiply that by 1.7. You can go and read that article if you want to read all the details, but it does make a lot of sense. Now, for me, I didn't want to just blindly start charging this rate. I needed to make sure that the price made sense to me. I needed to make sure that I felt right about it. So what I did was I figured out what my time spent on location was, my time spent editing, administrative work, taxes, all that stuff. And I determined what my rate would be out of that, which just happened to be pretty close to that 1.7 multiplier that Larry mentions. I also knew that larger homes are, 1, they're going to take longer to shoot, and 2, they're typically going to be more valuable than smaller homes in terms of commission. So I decided that for me, the best way to structure my business would be to have a pricing model that would be tiered based on square footage. I won't go into a ton of detail on all the different pricing iterations that I've had, that I've gone through, but I'm just going to cover a couple of them, and I'm just going to tell you since I started, I guess I've only made 4 significant changes to my rates. So I originally started out at, I charged in 3,000 square foot increments, and then I switched to 2,000 square foot increments a couple years later. And during those times I was shooting primarily HDR. I'd really only use a flash if I was in a really dark home or if I felt that flash was needed. From there, I switched to 500 square foot increments, which actually gave the agents more flexibility when it came to pricing. And at that point, I was shooting mostly single exposure images. I was doing a little bit of compositing in Photoshop, but using the Sonys, I just had a lot of dynamic range. Usually a single exposure would do it for me. But the way that this model works for me is I start at 1,000 square feet and I charge $100 for that. And from there, it was $20 for every additional 500 square feet. You might ask, how did everyone keep track of that? It seems like a lot to remember, but they didn't need to because I actually use an ordering system on my website, which is, I'll cover that in another video. But in the spring of last year, I decided that I wanted to start focusing less on real estate photography and more on design and architecture photography. And this is, for some of you who have been following me for a while, this is when I switched my Instagram account to be more focused on my design work. And then I slowly started building my equipment inventory to be better equipped for shoots where I would need a lot of flash or a lot of light on. So I practiced my techniques on some of my real estate shoots until I got really dialed into where I felt comfortable with everything. And then in December, I photographed every listing with flash, and I began explaining to the agents that this is how I was going to be shooting going forward. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, and I kind of explained to them the price is going to be changing a little bit. So finally, this year, I made one more change that I think is a little bit more forward-thinking, in my opinion. I wanted to start offering a premium tier of photography that would offer the agents the opportunity to receive like a higher quality image, but also allow me to shoot less, but basically get paid the same amount when it all boiled down to it. So I raised my rates $25 for every 500 square feet versus the $20 I was charging for every 500 square feet. I also included this higher end tier of photography for an additional $35 on top of that. So where did I come up with $35? Well, it's really all based on my time spent on location, and it simply just takes longer to edit those. So based on the things I talked about earlier in the video, my rate ended up being about $35 worth of my time for flash shoots. Now, there's a ton of other different pricing models, but like I said, I was really just going to talk about what I do and why I do it. A lot of people charge based on the amount of photos being taken, but I don't do that because, again, on average, larger homes tend to be more valuable than smaller homes. Therefore, the images are going to hold a lot more value in a larger home, in my opinion. I still don't typically shoot more than 25 images. My MLS only allows for 25 images, but in larger homes, I might shoot up to 30. If that's what the house calls for. Sometimes the house doesn't call for that many images. There's others out there that charge a minimum fee to just show up at the house, and then from there they charge on a per image basis. You guys, every location throughout the world is different. Everybody's situation is different. But my biggest suggestion for you is that no matter what you do, do not undercut your competition. And don't undercut your future either. It's so much harder to increase your rates down the road than it is to start with higher rates and then slowly grow your business. If you undercut your competition, you're not only going to damage the market and your reputation, you're going to completely devalue what we do. You're also going to devalue the agents who work with you, because then everybody's going to start using professional photography, and photography is going to become more of a commodity. So I threw a lot at you. I know it's a lot to follow. I may have lost some of you. If you have any specific questions that you want more info on, or you want me to clarify, just leave them in the comments. We can have a discussion one-on-one or there in the comments. Stay tuned for more videos on pricing. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about different services that are, in my opinion, underutilized that you can provide to your clients. As always, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, you can do so, Jordan Powers without the vowels. See you next week with a brand new episode.